which is around aquaponics. So Mona, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you've been enjoying the talks today. Indeed, let me just go and share my screen next with my presentation slides here. Can you see it? Yes? I'm assuming nobody's saying no, so it'll work fine. Yes, perfect. All right, so yeah, indeed, welcome and thank you for joining. My name is Mona. I'm a Master's of Science in Food Policy student at the City University of London. I'll be talking to you today about a food production system called aquaponics. This is food production that combines the production of plants with fish at the same time. So you get two crops at the same time. I believe that this system touches on up to 10 different global goals, which we will be talking about later. I'll kind of start with just saying that the way I discovered aquaponics was quite an interesting way. I used to study Spanish language and literature, and then I also lived for about 2 years in Central America. And throughout this process, I was always kind of exposed to the ancient civilizations of Latin America. And I learned quite a lot about Aztecs and Incas and everything. I was always really fascinated by these civilizations because having never been to the moon, for example, they really knew a lot about the planets, how they orbit and so forth. So I was always looking at these pictures and I was thinking, like, what are they doing? And then later on, when I came into the MSc program, by accident, I came across a report that led me to find out that, okay, they're actually producing food here. So they have a raft on top of water and they're creating essentially like plants to cultivate on top of the raft. And then they have, in the water, obviously, they have fish. So how did I go forward about this? I decided to focus my dissertation on aquaponics. And for this one, I conducted a case study on aquaponics in Finland. And I created two different research questions. I wanted to know the key opportunities and obstacles for aquaponics in Finland, and also how policymaking could accelerate the development of the system in the country. I really wanted to understand if this could really be a solution to address a lot of the issues that we talked about in classes about when it comes to food systems. This was like a two-phased process. I did a pretty in-depth literature review looking at different parts of the food system and also aquaponics, kind of combining these perspectives, political, economic, societal, environmental, and health perspectives. And then I conducted up to 11 interviews with relevant participants who commented on, from their perspectives on my questions so that I could find out answers to my research questions. So just to brief you in a little bit about the issues within our food system today, one of the main issues is the climate crisis, which the food system is a driver for. We have climate change, we have biodiversity loss, increasingly concerning issues with those. We have remaining food insecurity, price volatility in the global market, system vulnerability, etc. Even though we're producing so much food, still we have remaining insecurity. Then we have unhealthy diets in forms of malnutrition and chronic diseases. I think all of us can relate to this in a way or another, kind of realize that we know at least one of these issues. But these pictures are actually taken in Guatemala when I was living in Central America, and this is a prime example of a community in a developing country that actually is subject to all of these issues at the same time. So that is very concerning to me. So I wanted to know if aquaponics could be a solution to address these issues, and I found out that it actually could. So what is aquaponics? Aquaponics is a combination of aquaculture with hydroponics, which is a form of plant production. You do it in a soilless environment. So how this works is a circular system. How does it work? When you feed the fish creates waste, and the waste becomes fertilizer for the plants. Then the plants clean the water, and you go back to this same cycle. It's a very natural cycle. This happens in nature all the time. It's just that kind of like, just like many other things, humans can mimic what's happening out there in the wild nature and create their own system based on that. It's a very old concept, already known in ancient China and Aztec Empire, like I said. With the development of modern aquaponics, we've seen a little bit more higher tech systems within like 50 years or so. So this means that it's a simple system, but with some modern science and technology, these can be high or low tech. And these can become really varied, very adaptable, scalable, very interesting, very diverse systems. And the sizes can be between anything from 2 square meters to thousands of square meters in size. What does it mean then? So you could produce in both urban and rural areas because of the fact that it doesn't require a natural lake or any other water area. It does not require soil to produce plants. You can do it in both hot and cold climates because of the fact that with the modern science and technology, we can create different things to make this happen. Like, for example, you can do it in a basement and you can put some LED lights in there, etc. You can do this in a commercial scale, to sell products, or you can do it as a hobby in your own backyard, in your own basement, in your own living room, etc. These are 2 pictures just to show you a little bit of what these systems look like. You can see here the main idea is clearly to set the plants on top of the water. And yeah, it looks really great. A lot of people really like the way the plants are incorporated with the fish production. And obviously in urban areas, this would really bring a lot of like fun colors, right? Okay, so how could aquaponics address the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations? I believe this could be done 10 different ways, but I'll just focus on the number 2 right now because we're so limited on time. You can ask me about the other ones in the Q&A. But so the second one, I believe that this is a great way to address hunger because of the fact that aquaponics can produce healthy, local, and sustainable foods that can be protected from risks in wild nature. So essentially right now, for example, a lot of people are coming to know that fish products, for example, have issues with microplastics, etc. So these type of systems could produce without having those type of hazards affecting the food production. And obviously fish and plants in general is a very healthy part of a healthy diet. Local foods, obviously, this system being very scalable could be adapted in a variety of situations and adapted to even households, right? Okay, so yeah, let's come back to these if you would like to hear about them more. I want to talk about the biggest obstacle for aquaponic development that I discovered through my research project. And without a doubt, I figured that it's the economic one. And what does this mean? So currently, the investment and production costs are still very high for these type of systems. So aquaponics, as it's a system that combines both plants and fish, requires completely new type of technology. And because it's so different from anything that is out there, you really need to invest in the research and development of these systems and just the technology in itself. But it's a really great way to address a lot of the issues within our food system today. At the same time, it's also really hard to compete with a mainstream linear system modeled kind of products and production that has not the trust of their practices into their prices. So how could this be promoted then? I figured that there are different things you could do, a variety of things. In terms of both consumers and policymakers, how could these 2 different groups address the promotion thing? So you could just increase public knowledge by spreading information more and more about aquaponics. Anyone can do this. This is really important because the system is so unknown still. So many people, when I was doing my research, had never heard of the term aquaponics. It's very unknown. People don't know the opportunities and possibilities with the system. And of course, just financial support directly, buying from these potential producers and supporting them with money, right? So that both the public and the private sector see, okay, our customers, people want to see like a change in the food system. They want to see responsible production and healthy diets. They want this. Let's invest in the research and development of these systems. Let's make it happen. Okay, so I want to thank you everyone for joining. Here's my contact info. I would love to respond to any questions that may come up later on. My email and LinkedIn. I don't have a website yet, but I'm working on it. And for this website, I'm going to create a full portfolio. I'm going to be creating all sorts of content, policy briefs and media content, both, I mean, Finnish, English, and Spanish, so that we can reach more and more people and spread the word about aquaponics. Thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.
That was fantastic, Mona, and bang on 10 minutes. So yes, fantastic. So yes, we'll open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to raise? I see that your hand is up, Julia.
Yeah, I do have questions. That was so interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard of the term. As you said, many people don't know, and I'm one of them. I guess I have two questions. One would be, what cultures grow very easily using this system, or what cultures do you eat yourself that are grown within, the system, thanks to the system? And where can we see it? Can you suggest any locations, any cities, any specific, parks or places where we can, travel and maybe see how it's done? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. So for the first question, you were asking about in terms of like what cultures adapt these systems most likely or have adapted. Sorry, I couldn't.
What kinds of food that you yourself have eaten that were grown with this system?
I have not, from this system, no. I've eaten from like a recirculating aquaculture system product, which is kind of based on the same method. It just doesn't have the plants on it, but the technology is similar. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really like an aquaponic one because there's not one food producer, for example, in Finland, really, that makes it happen right now. The biggest one is currently in the United States, I believe. That there is thousands of square meters in size, and they're producing, I believe, salmon and lettuce currently. So that one is really working really well. In Europe, it's quite limited. There are some in the UK, for example, in the pictures. So the one that showed the big system, that is in the UK. I cannot remember the city right now, but I can definitely email it to you later. And your other question was about like countries where this is like more common to be found. I would say definitely the United States is pretty developed in this, in sense that they have a huge sort of like a do-it-yourself spirit thing with this. So people have like backyard systems where they build this system on their own. It doesn't have to be a very costly system. You could just have like an IBC tank and just put some stuff, to support it and everything. And then obviously the biggest farm seems to be in the United States as well, but hopefully soon in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, hello. So I am Faika Atik, and yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I am Faika Atik, and I work with the aquaponic in Finland, and I think I got this invitation also from you to participate in this.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have question, but at the moment I will just like to say that the really nice presentation, and I would like to know that have you any experience with this, or you just have collected the knowledge about these projects and then wrote your thesis, or did you grow them by yourself?
No, I do not have any type of system in my own home or anything. I just done the research for the Masters of Science in Food Policy dissertation. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question in the chat, which I think is more of a clarification. And the question is, how do you get the plants? do you need to have already grown plants? That's the question.
I believe that there's like different ways to go about this. This is a really good question that I didn't focus on in my research per se, in terms of like the home systems, because I was kind of looking at more the commercial high-tech systems. But I believe that somebody if knows better can correct me wrong if I'm incorrect here, but I believe that you can just get like seeds and stuff and just somehow put it on they have like these pebbles and stuff. But that's a good question. I don't really have a really good answer to that as well.
Okay, so we've got two other questions which I'd like to go to. The first one was from Jacob. Would you like to unmute yourself? Ask your question.
Yeah, hey, thank you for the talk. Really enjoyed that. I guess it's a sort of two-part question. The first is that I've seen a lot of interest recently in like urban farming. It's like farms underground in London, or I think Bill Gates and Kimball Musk and a lot of people are getting really interested in urban farming. So for one, like how far do you see aquaponics as a sort of way forward with that in like urban farming? And two, how important do you think something like aquaponics will be in reducing food insecurity, like especially after COVID? I think we've all realized how vulnerable our international food systems are. And do you see aquaponics as a way of sort of increasing our food security? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So for the first one, within like urban food production, I definitely think there are so many opportunities here to kind of adjust aquaponics into, for example, rooftops or basements and everything like this. I think that there's just so much we don't know because we don't have the research and development that we need to really make these systems function the way they should and can. There's so much room to grow. In terms of the food insecurity question that you asked, I definitely think that this could really help with reducing insecurity, especially because, yeah, you can do it sort of like high-tech systems, but also like more simple ones, and you can adapt these into a variety of situations, and hopefully people can access food more, they have more food security in their area, more local foods, and yeah, hopefully this can be become like a normal thing, kind of like a TV or something. That's what I'm hoping, but I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, and we've got one last question and a minute or so to answer it. Alicia, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mona, for such a good presentation. I was wondering if you might be able to expand a bit more on the Sustainable Development Goal linkage in the time that we've got left.
Sure. So should I share the slide on this one so people can see, or?
That'd be good.
Or okay, yeah, let me share real quick because I think there was just so many, so it might be a little bit challenging to. You can see this, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, all the other ones, like I said, aquaponics is a really diverse system that can be, for example, applied to other industries. You could technically take this to another level and improve like tourism. Then you could, sorry, there was like a resonation of my own voice. And then obviously adapting to cities, improving public spaces that promote mental health. This recycles water very efficiently, so clean water and sanitation. Also because it's a closed system, so the waste doesn't go outside of the system at all, the way that it happens currently with the conventional agriculture systems. Obviously, kind of creating new innovative jobs and products. That's a way to also address a sustainable SDG. Looking at, in general, just responsible consumption and production, increasing resource efficiency when you're using even fish waste, you don't waste anything. So that's really great. Climate action, you can kind of, I like this idea because aquaponics, like you can put this, for example, in in a basement, right, with some LED lights or something. And I think it's a very interesting thing to think about, like, for example, if there's a huge drought in some part of the world that produces a lot of food. So I think that these type of solutions are really important within like changing climate, to think about these kind of solutions, that when we do have a natural disaster or something happening out there in the wild nature, that we can still maintain our food production. In general, life below water, obviously, for example, this could be developed to integrate, for example, algae. So algae could bind nutrients from the ecosystems that have already been placed there by other activities. And life on land, ending deforestation and promoting sustainable land use to protect biodiversity. This in general, I mean, fish is a quite efficient feed user, for example. And then obviously plants is a very good crop for humans to consume from health and environment perspectives. And this, I mean, yeah, there are many things here that I think that aquaponics could not only address food related issues, but then also be adapted to other things and kind of drive the development, maybe other industries. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mona. That's our time there. So thank you very much for your presentation, which was fascinating, and thank you very much, everybody, for your questions on that.
Yes, thank you.
So we'll just move into our second presentation, which is Lara from SOAS. Lara, would you like to take over?
Yeah, sure. I'll just share my screen now. Hopefully it will work. Oh. Loading.
Yes, that's working.
Cool. It's not showing up on my screen. Yeah, now it is. Okay, great. So, hi, my name is Lara, like Jason said, and we're going to be looking at how culture and history are shaping sustainable sea transport in Fiji. So, through an organisation called Think Pacific, I interned for an amazing Fijian NGO called the Utanialo Trust. The Utanialo Trust aims to promote a sustainable and reciprocal relationship with the environment by re-engaging Fijians with traditional boat building techniques, navigating and voyaging. They work towards many different global goals, including decent work and economic growth, sustainable cities and communities, and the 14th goal, life below water. As a history of art student, I found it fascinating that organisations like the Utanialo Trust were looking to the past to solve the problems of today and tomorrow. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you all feel the same way. But before we look at the work of the Utanialo Trust, I think it's important to understand why there's a need for sustainable sea transport in Fiji. Like many other countries across the South Pacific, Fiji is a small island developing state, or an SIDS. This means that Fiji is especially vulnerable to the effects of climate change, such as rising sea levels, flooding, and an increase in the frequency and intensity of cyclones. Sadly, Fiji is already having to bear the brunt of some of these effects. In early 2016, one of the strongest recorded tropical cyclones hit Fiji. Cyclone Winston caused 80% of the population to lose access to power, not to mention many people losing their homes, their businesses, and unfortunately their lives. As the planet becomes warmer, natural disasters like this will become increasingly common in Fiji. According to the Fijian government's low emission developing strategy, compiled a couple of years ago, the total emissions for the maritime sector were estimated to be 174 kilotons of carbon dioxide. Most of these emissions came from diesel vessels of various sizes and capacity. It would be easy to say something like, just reduce the number of boat trips taken. But the problem is, sea transport is very important in Fiji, not just for the industrial or economic sectors, but also for everyday people. Of the over 300 islands that make up the Fijian archipelago, over 100 are inhabited. These islands are spread across thousands of square miles of ocean, so access to sea transport is vital for personal travel, trade between islanders, access to critical services like healthcare and educational institutions like schools, and fishing as well. As a result, many people use maritime transport to keep connected. But this isn't a new phenomenon. Fiji has a history of voyaging that spans thousands of years. According to Fijian mythology, the first Fijians to arrive in Fiji came on a canoe named Kaunitoni. They were led by warrior chief Nutuna Somba Somba, accompanied by his general Ndenge. A fleet of double-hulled canoes called ndruas, like the ones you can see on the slide, travelled across the seas in search of an island in the southeast. This island was said to have bountiful seas and luscious land, and so it seemed like the perfect place for the chief's people to live. By navigating using the evening stars, they arrived at Vunda Point, which is on the west coast of Fiji's largest island, Viti Levu. Now, whilst many people question the validity of this story, I think one of the most interesting things about it is that it's still retold. This story and the significance of canoeing has been passed down from generation to generation. Whether it's completely true or otherwise, the story is undoubtedly a key part of Fijian culture and history. It's meaningful. More recently, in the 18th century, the Thamakau was the choice canoe for travelling between islands. This boat is a single-hulled canoe and it has an outrigger coming off the side of it. Although smaller than the Ndrua, Thamakaus could be really big. The largest one recorded measured over 20 meters. The Ndrua, on the other hand, was primarily used as a warship. They would take part in naval battles and would be used as a way to transport warriors during raids. Interestingly, the Ndrua had a very authoritative air about it, not just because it was absolutely giant, but also because it was associated with the upper classes. Only aristocrats could own an Ndrua, and they were seen as very sacred canoes, and they deserved a lot of respect. The point in me sharing all of this information with you is to try and express how big of a role canoes played in Fijian culture and history. Naturally, the next question would be, so what happened? In the late 19th century, the Ndrua and the Thamakau became much less common. Many people felt like these canoes were old-fashioned and they preferred European vessels. These European boats were seen as more efficient and more modern, and they therefore became very popular. On occasion, Thamakaus regained some of their popularity, for example, in the 1930s during the Depression and in the 1980s when oil prices dramatically increased. However, neither time caused a permanent shift back to the regular use of Thamakaus. The reason why I say it's so important to hold on to these traditional canoes is not just because I'm an art history student and I love old things, but also because a lot of these modern vessels are powered by expensive fossil fuels, whereas Thamakaus and Ndruas, on the other hand, are powered by the wind. As I mentioned near the beginning of this presentation, Fiji is the country that is particularly susceptible to the impacts of climate change. Therefore, these boats powered by expensive diesel fuels are not very sustainable. So what's being done to solve this problem? This is where the Utunialo Trust comes in. It was originally formed in 2009 and was part of the Fiji Islands Voyaging Society under the Fiji Arts Council. However, in 2013, it established itself as a standalone organisation. The name Utunialo comes from the Wakamoana, or the flagship vessel. She's over 20 meters long and has completed 4 voyages around the Pacific, covering over 80,000 kilometers. As an organization, the Utunialo Trust aims to showcase the validity of using traditional canoes as a viable and sustainable form of maritime transportation. They do this through educating and re-engaging people, particularly young people, in traditional boat building, navigating, and seafaring. The Utunialo Trust is part of a family of voyaging societies that are located across the Pacific. Fiji joined Tahiti, Samoa, Tonga in setting up voyaging societies after successfully collaborating with older societies in Hawaii, the Cook Islands, and Aotearoa, which is near New Zealand. All of these societies share the common goal of reviving traditional voyaging techniques. As you can see on the slide, these canoes have definitely been adapted to the 21st century. The solar panel even that you can see is used when there's low wind. However, when there are good conditions to sail in, these canoes use wind power to travel across the sea. Today, these canoes have multiple functions, one of which being supporting the efforts of disaster relief. For example, in November of 2020, the Utunialo Trust delivered over 1,200 sheets of corrugated iron roofing to over 200 families in villages across Batulele Island, whose houses were destroyed by a cyclone called Cyclone Harold. This is just one of the many examples of amazing work being done by the Utunialo Trust. Before I end this presentation, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for all of you listening, but also suggest some ways that you might be able to help. Sometimes it can feel like these problems are so big and they're so far away. How can I do anything? But I think one of the best things that we can do is to listen. So I've included some of the different ways that you can hear about the work of the Utunialo Trust, coming straight from the amazing people that work there. I've also included the website for Think Pacific at the bottom, which is the organisation that allowed me to do an internship with the Utunialo Trust. They do some really amazing work as well in Fiji with lots of other Fijian organisations as well. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I'm more than happy to answer questions to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much, Lara. And yes, we'll open it up to questions there. So as I say, in the chat or raise your hands. Whilst everybody's going, I do have one question whilst everybody's thinking of questions, which is about you coming to this as an art history student. How did your interest in this area, how did that develop from your practices?
Well, I'm actually biology and chemistry for A levels, so I had a really big interest in science and the environment. So this was kind of my way to get back into it, even though as a degree, that's not what I do. But I think one thing that was really interesting that I found from this internship was how much culture can play a part in sustainability. I think sometimes we hear sustainability and we think, oh, the environment, we think biology, we think loads of statistics, but we don't always put a human face to that. And I think that's one thing that really attracted me to the Utunialo Trust. They were doing things for the people, and that was just very special. So that's what I think.
Thank you very much. We have a question that Jacob, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you again. That was really interesting. Those boats look so cool as well. But this trust, is the plan to sort of scale this sort of technology or sustainable transport up? Is it looking to replace the sort of fossil fuel engine as a way of transport between islands? Or because I know you're hearing like sustainable development a lot, it's like a trade-off between livelihoods and sustainability, and sometimes it's just so much more practical to use a fossil fuel engine. So is it more about just people getting re-engaged with the culture, or are they sort of practically trying to phase in wind or like solar powered engines in place of fossil fuels?
Thank you. That's a really good question. So Fiji, a big part of its economy is tourism. So in an ideal world, this sort of technology would be used for that. As well as that, as I mentioned, people need to move from island to island. So that would be a big part of it. But as well as that, the fossil fuels, the diesel fuel, it's very, very expensive. So they are engaging with people in rural communities. So as opposed to them having to buy this really expensive diesel, instead they can learn how to make a canoe. They can learn how to take care of it. They can learn how to use it. And not only is that doing amazingness for the environment and Fiji as a whole, but also it re-engages them with their culture, something that has been sadly lost.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. Jason, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I was just saying thank you very much to Jacob for that, and asking if there are any other questions out. No. No. Okay. Then yes. Well, thank you very much, Laura, for your presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yes, I'm very interested in those canoes now. So yes, thank you very much for your presentation, and hopefully we can all follow on the links that you've provided us. So thank you. Okay. So go ahead. What was that? Sorry, did you say something there, Laura?
I'll drop them in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so again, another excellent presentation, and we shall move on to our final presentation, which is from Julia, and it's entitled Non-Zero Sum Game. Julia, would you like to take control?
Yes, thank you. And it's also called Collaborate or Die.
It is also called Collaborate or Die, yes.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice being here. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this conference and tell you about my project, which is not just my project. It was a project that was carried out by my entire group of classmates. So I'm a recent graduate of Ravensbourne University, London. It's located on the what's the peninsula, what's the Greenwich Peninsula, or no, I'm not sure what the term is. I forgot, because I'm not in London anymore. I'm from Moldova, so hi from Eastern Europe. Right, so I'm a master student. I was a master student of service design innovation. Ravensbourne is a communication and service design communication and design university, so we only teach 2 subjects. You might not have heard of it because of this. But what's interesting, I'm not a environment or a sustainability expert at all, and nobody was in our group. However, we were asked to look at how sustainability is meant to be a zero-sum game, where, you know, if one wins, the other loses, which we were asked to challenge this idea specifically for universities. So apparently, there is a ranking system within the UK, which basically ranks universities against each other for being lesser or more sustainable than others. And we were asked to look how this could be, as designers, how this could be challenged, the idea of being, you know, a zero-sum game. So the brief that we got from our university, and the university was basically our client for this project, was to look at how we can enable inter-university collaboration rather than competition. And as designers, we started to look into the project, started to, you know, look at what we think of sustainability, what other people in our university think of sustainability before we can go and collaborate with other universities. And we quickly figured out that there's a lot to be done within our own walls of the University of Ravensbourne. So we decided to ask students, conduct a listening campaign. That's what it's called, a tool, which is basically a tool that is used for quickly interviewing a bunch of people that probably share a sort of a concern. And specifically for this one, we asked what sustainability was to our students. And we quickly understood that Ravensbourne students are very, very, very much sort of concerned about sustainability, or sustainability is something that they think about and implement in their lives, as, you know, buying secondhand products or thinking about not, you know, consuming too much, different kinds of questions, answers, sorry, that they gave us. But the thing is, we've heard that Ravensbourne students think of sustainability in terms of not being impactful rather than being progressive. So that was interesting, and we took this results to our sort of teaching staff to speak to them about it as well, because at the time we were asked also to participate in the so-called Sustainability Environment Working Group that was set up at the university and nobody's ever heard of. But we were asked to come to one of their meetings to present what we were doing. And it was so interesting because we saw a lot of people, well, not a lot, to be honest, up to 10 which to me is a lot already, that were very, very curious about sustainability and how it was, how it can be embedded sort of in how the university is managed or works as an estate or as a teaching sort of environment. And it was interesting to figure out that the professors or the staff, the teaching staff and the management staff that were on the board, on the working group, didn't think that students were so much interested in sustainability, that they actually were they were not a force for good, because students at Ravensbourne produce a lot of waste in terms of fabrics from, you know, the fashion degree, or a lot of cardboard and paper for those who study architecture, and we obviously use a lot of equipment, and we do a lot of printing. So the professors and the staff were absolutely sure that students aren't even close to sort of a force for good. However, students believe that they are very, very, very sustainable in their behaviors in life. So that was the first finding of our research, that people sometimes they are not only on sort of the same page, they're reading different books. And that's very telling, I guess, because if you have two very important parts of the university, the students and the teachers, and they completely disagree and see differently each other or their roles, that tells you about something. That tells you that the university doesn't really have a shared vision. So another finding that we had once we interviewed the teaching staff and other sustainability officers from other universities was there was insufficient horizontal and vertical communication between, you know, students, staff, and management about what sustainability is, what a sustainable behavior around in a university is. And how did we find out that this was the case? Because everybody was telling us that they're doing something sustainable. Either a teacher is trying to embed sustainability as a lecture or like a cross-cutting thing in their curriculum, or a student is saying, this is what I would like to do, this is what I would like my university to pay more attention to, or someone, you know, from the management was saying, oh, I know how we can minimize our sort of carbon footprint if we, you know, reduce our teaching numbers or teaching hours at Ravensbourne. So everybody had ideas of how to improve the sustainability around universities, but nobody was aware of other people's ideas. So we figure that there is definitely insufficient communication, sort of vertical, from the sort of the top management to the very bottom of the students, and between sort of students and teachers that are there every day. Another finding was that the group that we attended, the working group, the sustainability working group, was composed of people who really cared about sustainability, had an idea what sustainability is and how it would be implemented in the university, but were not, they didn't have any power to change behaviors or policies in our university. So it was really poorly promoted and it didn't have any power. And when I say poorly promoted, nobody knew it existed. That's the thing. That's the terrible thing that we found out, that such great people with such great ideas are sort of put in a very difficult position where they talk and they talk and they talk and they propose solutions, but they're never really implemented. So that was one of our very sort of shocking findings. Another finding was that teachers, the teaching staff, they are left to their own devices when it comes to embedding in their curriculum sort of lectures or themes or subjects that are related to sustainability. And when we looked at all of our findings, and there is many more, but I'm not going to talk about them today, we figured that they're the biggest problem that Ravensbourne University sort of has, and any organization can have, is that there is no one shared vision of what sustainability or sustainable behavior is within the Ravensbourne University. So as designers, we were asked to do something about it. And the thing that we proposed was to run a workshop. Very simple thing. We actually designed a really nice workshop, and we wanted people from different universities and King's College and Loughborough University, with whom we were supposed to collaborate within this project, to come together. And we started looking for people outside these universities, but COVID happened, and it also it didn't just sort of not. It didn't just. I'm sorry. They didn't. It didn't just stop us from having the workshop, but it also challenged our ideas about what sustainability is, and how what role it plays at the moment in our lives. So we designed a workshop. To cut a very long story short, because I'm short on time as well, we put together for the first time a group of people in one room, even though it was a virtual room called Zoom. We put together people from management, people from the teaching faculty, from the teachers, the faculty, and students in one room. And we had designed a workshop and exercises, and we presented our findings and everything. But to be honest, once they were in the room with us, we had to pivot, and we had to throw away our plans and just let people speak. Just let people speak and hear each other. And yeah, I know I'm aware of the time.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's the idea that I wanted to share with you. That for the first time, we were able with this project to put key people in one room, that they can discuss what sustainability is and how there is no shared vision. And although that everybody in their heart cares about how they are impacting the world through our university, they don't really collaborate with each other. And that was the biggest lesson of 2020 for us Ravensbourne students. It was a really big project, and we're really proud of it. I'm gonna put a link to my website where I present it in a nicer way. Feel free to check it out, and also feel free to talk to me on LinkedIn if you like, about it or about anything else. One thing could be design, if you're interested in that, what service design is. That would be it for me today, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you.
Just before, please prepare your questions, but I've got a real interest in this, quite simply because my research is in exactly this area. My research is in how universities adapt to climate change or climate emergency. And so one of the things that you were looking to do there, which was to look across various institutions and find out what universities are doing and all of this sort of stuff. And I've done that. So I'm quite, and that's some research I'd be very happy to share with you if you're looking to build on the work that you've done. And interestingly enough, the findings of your research perfectly align with the findings of my research, which is that there are divergent aims within an institution. So it's not just at Ravensbourne, it's at all sorts of institutions. And also that, and I'm going to put a link in the link here, which is to the People and Planet University League, which is the thing that you mentioned, where universities are ranked against each other. And it'd be very interesting for those of you out there who are looking to find out a bit more about this, to have a look at that and to see the things which are measured within that, that there isn't really the student voice or the or what is done within a university, the teaching, the learning, the research isn't really captured in that very well. So it's very interesting to see, that you guys were doing this piece of work. But what my question comes in is, now that you have done this, what's the next step? What's the next? How does this integrate into Ravensbourne University or wider university thinking?
Well, that's a great question, and that's probably the biggest problem that we had with our project. We undertook it, and it was very well. We learned a lot of things, about our university and about sustainability and what it is to us. But honestly, I wish I could say that there's a next step. There isn't. We didn't agree on one. At the end of the workshop, everybody was asked to say like tell us one thing that you would like to do right now after we finish this workshop, that you can take this issue further or do something about it. And everybody said different things, but it didn't translate into a policy or I don't know, or a meeting or anything that can be taken further, unfortunately. But I do think that it impacted every single person that was involved in the project, and we definitely care more, know what our shortcomings are, how we're not making, like how are we saying one thing and making, doing another thing. So, yeah, unfortunately, there's not much I can say about how it's translated into something bigger.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
It also had to do with the fact that we left. We were graduate students who, finished our courses, and that was it. We were not attached to the university anymore. It's not like we could do something about it. If we were doing this when we were freshmen or something in our second year, that could have been a different story. And also COVID impacted a lot.
Thank you. Any other questions out there?
Usually when I don't have any questions after my presentations, it's either, I say to myself, I either done it very well and there's no questions whatsoever, or I did it very poorly and nobody understood anything.
Well, I think it's the former. So, and just following on from that, as I say, this is an area which I have a particular interest in. And if you are looking to do any further, or you'd like any further research around this, then there's a collaboration opportunity there if it's something that you would like to do.
Great.
So please get in touch.
Thank you very much. I will definitely do it. And I just wanted to mention something. At the end of the presentation, project, I decided to speak to the Students' Union about it and tell them that I see them, the Students' Union, having a very strong role within their, agenda, sort of agents for sustainability for something, actually taking on a role of promoting sustainability within the universities, because I felt like they were connected to the teaching body, to the management, and they're representing the students. So what can be best, or what body could be best asked to take this further? And it presented them quite a few times our findings, and they really liked it. But I'm not sure that the way how students' unions are run, with their elections every year and everything, with the disruption that comes with it, that it's enabling such a role to be assumed.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia, and thank you to all of our presenters for your fantastic presentations, and thank you very much to the audience for your questions. After this, we're going to have a 30-minute break before we go into the final sessions. If you haven't already, please do visit the online poster exhibition, and also post any questions that you have for the presenters there, and vote for your favorite conference poster. The conference poster competition closes at 4:15 today, so please get over there and make your place your votes. The final session will include presentations on Global Goal 7, which is clean and affordable energy, and Global Goal 13, climate action, and Global Goal 4, which is quality education. And you can find the link to the posters, which I think has just been posted in the so please go over there and do that. And I've got something to post into the chat as well, which I think just sums up everything I have just said. So yeah, there you go. But as I say, once again, thank you everybody for your participation today. It's been great.
Thank you. See you.